Central Standard Time Zone. It is 6:30 here. Well, actually 6:35, but we're starting an hour sooner than what we normally would. So those who are joining us live on Pacific Coast time, it would be 4:35 there, and then those on East Coast time, it would be 7:30. We're just moving everything up about an hour as we. I guess you would say this is our daylight savings time, huh? In a way. I mean, we're trying to get started a little sooner while it's still kind of light outside, but it's already dark. But I do want to say, with that in mind, that this coming Sunday, first day of the week, that it is daylight savings time. So we will we will set our clocks back, right? It's fall back, spring forward. That's how we kind of keep everything in mind. So if you happen to be awake at 2 a.m. in the morning, just set your clocks back to 1 a.m. right? And so we gain an hour. But then springtime, we got to give it back. So what they're trying to do, the reason why they did it, this is one thing that we were informed years ago. One reason why they did daylight savings time for us is because we have a lot of farmers, and because the days were getting shorter and the evenings were getting longer. This is harvest time. This is the season of harvest, and you'll notice if you go around the fields in Iowa, you see a lot of the corn has already been picked and everything, but they didn't have all that heavy equipment then, and a lot of people, they just had a lot of manual labor, so they wanted to extend the evenings in the fall time around harvest, and that's where you get this moving back an hour. You actually gain an hour, but then you give it back in the springtime when we spring forward. So we welcome everybody that is in the house on tonight, Facebook and YouTube, and we pray that something will be said. We have been preparing ourselves, and we're starting to see some things happening around this country, and not only this country, but around the world. We're starting to see things happen that should alarm you, and if you have the Ruach, something should be rising up in you, letting you know that, hey, this is not, we don't have too much time. There's some things that's going to happen, and we're preparing ourselves spiritually in the Ruach. We're preparing ourselves mentally to endure and weather some of these storms. We're preparing ourselves physically to be able to endure, because don't know how true this is. We'll find out. But the SNAP program, which people won't receive their SNAP benefits starting, Tuesday? I guess it would be Tuesday, because November 1st is Monday, I think, or Sunday. November 1st is Saturday? Oh, okay. Okay, then November 2nd is Sunday, right. So you have a lot of people who won't be receiving their benefits for food, and it was already reported around here. I tried to do some research, and because you've seen it in our telegram, that over at Jewel Osco in Silvis, in the broad daylight, somebody it sounded like an elderly woman, and she was putting her groceries in her car, and somebody pulled up and grabbed her bags of grocery and took off. It was reported to the police. So, and you would think we would be the last ones, or, we wouldn't be the first of the nation. I wouldn't think, because of the program will be ending this weekend. So we have to be careful around here where we're at. And then those who are picking this up, no matter where you're at, you just have to be really careful, because we are desperate times. We are in the time of sorrow. We're in the time that was prophesied even by our Messiah, and other prophets that lived before him had already prophesied about this time. So we're living in the day of prophecy, end-time prophecy. We're actually living in end-time prophecy. And so that should really awaken us, because some of us, we grew up in in the Christian church, and we've been hearing about some of these things almost all our life. But now, these things we're here. We're on the precipice of the judgment coming upon this nation. A lot of the things that's mentioned in the book of Revelation, you're going to start to see that. Somebody even asked about, three-eye atlas, is that wormwood? Because it's talked about in Revelation, it's talked about wormwood, and it's going to be up in the sky, and it's going to bring a lot of sorrow and grief, and so some people want to know is that I'm not saying three-eye atlas is wormwood. I don't know. I think a lot of the things in Revelation, Most High Yah has to open it up, and if you don't see who Yasharel is, if you think the children of Jacob, the 12 tribes of Jacob, are those people over there in the Middle East, then you're going to miss Revelation completely. You might as well just close Revelation up, because you don't know who he is referring to when he talks about his people. And you think those people over there, and actually they're the ones in Revelations 2:9 and Revelations 3:9. That's who's over there. When they say they are the Yahudim, and they're not, they're actually the synagogue of Satan. And according to our Father, he says it's abomination to even say you're the Yahudim and you're not. To him, don't put that claim that you are his chosen people of the seed of Jacob through the fourth tribe, which is the kingly tribe, the royal tribe, and then you're going to say you are of that tribe and you're not. You're actually the synagogue of Satan. That's abomination unto him, unto our Father. So we are in those times that we really have to dig in, prepare ourselves, like I said, mentally, spiritually, physically, and pray for one another, and just thank the Most High. We're on this side. We're thanking the Most High that, we weren't the subjects of Hurricane Melissa. But when you see, they said that was the most powerful hurricane in history. They said those winds got up to over 200 miles an hour. And there was people on the island, and even some, people, head of state, and they said there's nothing on this island that can survive that type of wind damage. And it just went through there. And, we were praying, and we put it out in our Telegram app to send up a prayer for those who got stuck. I mean, they could, where are you going to go? You're on that island, where are you going to go? So it's just completely devastated. But, we're in that time now. We're in that time. And so we definitely got to prepare ourselves for what is going to take place. Now, there was one thing that Yahusha had said, and the understanding. It just takes some understanding for us to understand many of the things that is written in this book, because if you're not led by the Ruach or the anointing, because we see that in First Yehukanan, he says, who's supposed to be your teacher? The Ruach, the anointing, is supposed to be your teacher, and so you have to be guided by the Ruach in order to teach this book. And you could be a theologian, which means study of theos. Theology is the study of theos, and in Greek, theos is gods. And so theology or theologian is somebody who studies the gods. But for us, what separates us from theology and theologians is we're not studying our Abba. We know our Abba. Right? I mean, if you have the Ruach in St. John or Yahukanan, chapter 14, and I want to go to verse 21, and I'm going to read down a few verses, but we're to study his Torah and his word, and we're to study it to show ourselves approved, right? Approved unto Yahuwah, a workman that needeth not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. Now, we've been having our Hebrew nugget, and we're trying to bring out, and there's a lot of deep, very heavy nuggets being dropped, because the ones who remember, Yahusha told us that the kingdom is going to suffer violence, and the violent will take it by force. And the Greeks and the Romans, their philosophers, their theologians, they took this by force. And they forced their interpretation of it upon the world. They took it to the world. They took it into all nations. You can go over, I don't know where you want to go. How many continents is there? I think there's, 7 continents? You can go on each continent. You can Google it or ask Chat GPT, but I think there's like 193 countries. Does Chat GPT know? I think if you ask Chat GPT how many countries is there on this earth, I think there's like 193 countries. But when you look at all those countries, they've all been infiltrated by the Roman Catholic doctrine of Christianity. There's not a country or a nation. So when Yahusha says that this has to be preached to every nation, he's not talking about the Roman Catholic doctrine, because that has already gone to all nations. We ought to be done by now. We ought to be done by now. So the Greeks and the Romans, they took it by force. Their philosophy came in. They took control of the whole teaching of this. And I even now, when I hear some of our apostolic Pentecostal brethren and teachers, and I don't listen to them much, but when I do, they're just parroting the Greek philosophy, Roman philosophy. But he does tell us that we have to know how to rightly divide this word, and you do have to know who is who in this book. You got to know who's who, because that makes it a little easier to understand when these things start to fall upon us. So in Yahuchanan 14, verse 21, he that hath my commandments and keepeth them. Now this is Yahusha speaking now, because we have to be very careful, because those who took the kingdom by force, they'll tell you that the law is a curse. The law is a curse on you. And I even heard, spoke to me by an apostolic preacher, that he said that if he keeps the Sabbath, that'll put him under the curse of the law. And I was just like, man, I mean, because that's what the Greeks and the Romans taught. They were against our law book. So they said, if you keep the law, that's a curse. That's a curse on you. Well, I mean, if you look at the 10 Commandments, I mean, we have to live by the 10 Commandments. How is that a curse? How is keeping the 10 Commandments a curse? That came from an apostolic pastor. But he doesn't, I don't fault him, but because that's what he learned from philosophers and the theologians. Because as we're getting the Hebrew nuggets and everything, Constantine said, I ain't have nothing to do with none of your feast days. I could care less about your commandments. I ain't going to do none of that. I ain't keeping your Sabbath. I ain't keeping none of that. And he forced that on everybody, even to this day, when we have our own brothers and sisters who believe if you keep the commandments, you're cursed. And that's a shame. I mean, but we'll look at, but he says, he that hath my commandments and keepeth them, he it is that loveth me. You can't say that you love him if you don't keep his commandments. Notice now, he does not say, he that hath my commandments and keepeth them is he that is baptized and filled with the Holy Ghost. It doesn't say that. And I'm not against immersion and being filled with the Ruach. But I think people use that as a plumb line, and they think that if that's all it takes for you to get in, and that's not all it takes. That's just the beginning. What is the immersion in his name and being filled with the Ruach. What is that? What do we call that? That's the beginning, or what do we call that? It's salvation, but what do we call it? It's the, yeah, but it's the beginning. What do we call it? You have to be what? You have to be born again. We call it the birth, right? Isn't that what you call it? Hey, you got to be, you go around, you ask folks have you been born again? I mean, isn't that what we say? I mean, so that's just, so how many children do you know, even you look at your own self, what did you look like and how did you act and what did you know when you was born? Man, I can't even go back that far. I can't even remember, you know. But what if you were still like that today? What if, I mean, for somebody coming, hey, you need to be born again. That you might have been able to tell me that like many, many years ago, but you can't say that today. Okay, and I guess we could use Yahuchanan and Nicodemus. You know, we can use that as an example, because when he talked about being born again, and Nicodemus was going back to the natural, and he was dealing with something that was spiritual, something that had to happen spiritually. And so that's what he was talking about. He says, your birth, your new beginning is going to be at the time of immersion and being filled with the Ruach. That's your new beginning. You don't stay there. You don't stay there. And even Shaul, even when you look at 1 Corinthians 14, and maybe one day we'll look at that, because people, they abuse that and they don't have an understanding of 1 Corinthians 14. So that's just the beginning. So where do I go from there? Where do I go from the beginning? You teach a child, you teach them how to speak, you teach them how to talk, you teach them how to crawl, you teach them how to walk, you develop them. Because after 10, 15, 20 years of developing a child, you don't have a newborn child again. You know, if you do, something's wrong. After 20 years and you still look like you're one? He even said that in Hebrews chapter 5, right? He says, I can't give you no strong meat. He says, you're still babes. You haven't even been weaned yet. Because strong meat belongs to those who are of full age. So there's some things that we can learn. But if you're still dealing with, man, you got to be immersed, man, you got to be filled with the Ruach. Okay, but that's just the beginning. Now what? We have to move on to that. Because he even says, in Hebrews, if you look at Hebrews chapter 6, he says, not laying again the foundations. We can't keep laying the foundations. If you don't believe it, just read Hebrews chapter 6. It's right there, starting verse number 1. You know, man, we got to teach the doctrine of immersion. Now, for some of us, I'm looking around here, I shouldn't have to talk to you about the doctrine of immersion. All y'all full age grown, you're going to be teaching them doctrine of immersion again? Something's wrong. We have those who are coming in, well, I need to know more about immersion. I need to know about this birth. And then we can start teaching them about the birth, the being born again of the Ruach, being born again of the immersion. Because everybody that wants to live eternally in the kingdom is going to have to be immersed or born again, water in his name, because that's going to remit the sin. Or when we talk about remission, anybody that has cancer, you know what it means to be in remission. That means the cancer stops. It's no longer progressing, which they call what? There's two words when they deal with cancer. What do they call? One word is benign, right? Well, the other word is malignant. So, you know, if when somebody said they got cancer, they want to hear it's benign. They don't want to hear it's malignant, because malignant means it's still growing. It's spreading. So that's what the immersion in his name is. It makes sin benign. It stops it. That's the remission is. You have to stop sinning. It can't keep sinning. You keep sinning, those who sin will not get in. You know, and so what we're doing in this ministry is trying to prepare you for that wilderness experience so that you can pass that test, because we all have to stand before him. So what we're doing here in this ministry is preparing you so that when you have your appointment with him, which you will have, and he's going to deal with you face to face, which he will do. He's going to purge Yasharel. It says in Zechariah, 2/3 ain't going to make it. 2/3 will not make it. So we're trying to get in this ministry, trying to get you ready, because we see the signs of the time. This thing is coming to an end. We're going to be gathered here shortly. He that hath my commandments and keepeth them, he it is that loveth me, and he that loveth me shall be loved of my Abba. And I will love him and will manifest myself to him. Yehuda, which is they one thing about the Greek and the Latin, especially the Greek, they put a character at the end of male's name. I forget, what is that character called? It's in the Greek, but when you translate it to English, it's an S. But they always put at the end of a male's name for masculinity. And somebody in the chat might know what I'm talking about. But it's a Greek letter that they put at the end of a name to make it masculine. That's why you see a lot of Judas, Jesus, Jeremias. You know when they have all these names. Aliyah or Elijah, they call him Elias. They always put that S at the end because that makes it masculine. So when you translate it to so actually in verse number 22, actually it's Yehuda. Yehuda saith unto him, not Iscariot, Adonai, how is it that thou wilt manifest thyself unto us and not unto the world? Yahusha answered and said unto him, if a man love me, he will keep my words. And my Abba will love him, and we will come unto him and make our abode with him. If this is not what you are experiencing, then you probably don't have the Ruach. And you really need the Ruach, because the manifestation of who Yahusha is comes through the Ruach HaKodesh. To be able to manifest manifestation means to reveal, the revealing of him. Now, Yahusha, when you talk about Yahusha, if you have Yahusha, it's just a name, or it's not. There's nothing that comes with it. It's very hollow. Then he hasn't manifested himself unto you. In order to see Yahusha, where do we go? If he wants to manifest himself unto you, because he says it in Psalms 40, and he says it in Hebrews chapter 10. What does he say? Psalms 40 and Hebrews chapter 10. What does he say? Lo, I come in the volume of the book. It is written of me. So if you want to see Yahusha, you want to see the revealing of him, you have to have an understanding of the volume of the book, which it begins in Genesis. It goes all the way through the seed of Jacob. It goes down through, the history, the king, the royal, the kingdom, the prophets. It comes up to where Yahusha is born, and in his day. But when you talk about the volume of the book, you got to go to all of the Torah and the Tanakh. You got to go to the Torah, the history, and the Tanakh. As this day winds up and as this day ends, if you don't understand the history and the prophecy that was given unto Yasharel, you'll miss Revelation. You're going to miss it. You're not going to understand it. You're going to see birds flying around, all in your head. Usually when was it when we played football and we get knocked in the head or something and you get a slight concussion? Butterflies, man. They tell you, man, can you see butterflies? Because you can look at folks in their helmet, man, their eyes is all that. I mean, I know you say, I've seen it too. Their eyes like, man, I'm seeing butterflies, But if you don't have an understanding of the volume of the book, you get to Revelation, all you're going to see is stuff flying around, butterfly. Somebody says unconscious. That's how you're going to be when it comes to this book. You're really not going to know because you don't know who the characters are, who the people are. Most High Yahuwah made a covenant with one nation. And that plays throughout this whole book. The covenant that he made with one nation. And that's why Yahusha came, is because of that covenant that he made. He told, we read it the last couple of weeks, last Wednesday and on the Shabbat, and we was talking about the seed of Abraham. What was one of the promises of the seed of Abraham? The land. They was going to inherit the land. What was another thing about the seed of Abraham, Yishak and Yaakov? What else did he say about that seed? Yes, they're going to inherit the land, but what else did he say about it? One of the first things he told Abraham about his seed. So we better slow it down. Because we read it several times in the promise. And Yahusha came, he confirmed all the promises. Every promise that he spoke unto Abraham, Yishak, and Yaakov, and to King Daud, all those promises and those covenants, he came and he confirmed it. Confirmation, when you look up the word confirmation, when you confirm something, I mean, you lock it in, it's solid, it's something that is true, it's something that, and you can look up the definition of confirm, but that's what Yahusha did. But what was the first thing that he told Abraham? Father of many nations, and what? The covenant, and his seed was what? Would be blessed. There was going to be so many of them. He says, your seed is going to be like the stars of the Shamaim, and by the sand that's by the seashore. And you look at that, and you think, man, that's innumerable, right? That's just innumerable. And so Yahusha had to come, because when you look at the curses of Deuteronomy 28, one of the curses that he told that was going to happen to his seed was that they were going to be he said, all these curses are going to follow you until you are destroyed. Destroyed. Wait a minute. You just said we're going to be like the stars of the Shabbat. Now you say we're destroyed? Well, the restoration of Yasharel, he had to be true to Abraham. He had to send his son to redeem his people, because his people were destroyed. They're destroyed people. I had to give my son unto them to redeem them, because I promised Abraham, I made a covenant with Abraham, that his seed was going to be like the stars of the Shamaim. So Yahusha had to come to fulfill those promises, to confirm those promises, and start to build the kingdom up again, so that Abraham's seed would be like the stars of the Shamaim and the sand which is by the seashore. And that prophecy does not end today, and it's not going to end in the wilderness. That prophecy is going to continue even into when we have a new heaven and new earth, because the new heaven and the new earth is going to be populated with the seed of Abraham. Is there going to be other nations? Yeah, there's going to be other nations, but his seed is going to populate. And I know, oh boy, I'm just say this and move on. We really don't know how big this earth is. We say we do, we really don't. But the new heaven and the new earth is, because you think, man, it's going to be able to hold all the people, because you got the resurrection, right? Then you got all these people that are coming. But Yahusha had to come to to redeem his people. So what do we, when we look at this, when he says we will come and make our abode with him, with you, you cannot know him if you don't know the volume of the book. You don't know him. You don't know him if you don't know the volume. So when he says we will come and make our abode with him, and it's there to manifest, he said, I'm going to manifest, I'm going to reveal myself unto you, the Ruach in you. If you can't understand the word and what was written, then you're not going to understand what he's talking about. If a man love me, he will keep my words, and my Father will love him, and we will come unto him and make our abode with him. Now, how does he abode with us? How does he abode with us? We all should get this. How when you say he's abiding with me, he's dwelling with me, how is he dwelling with you? In what? In the Ruach. In the Ruach, right? But if you have the Ruach, what else should you have? Huh? Clean temple? You got to have the clean temple. He's going to dwell with those with a clean temple. But if you got the Ruach, which is, we're talking about Abba Yahuwah, his son, Yahusha. That's his spirit. That's his spirit and his power. You're going to have that. Because if you keep reading on here, he says, y'all going to do more things than what I did. That's going to be some power. You're going to have the Ruach. You're going to have power. One thing that you got to have, what was made flesh? One thing you got to have is the word. It is so important that it was a commandment that the fathers teach their sons. That was a commandment. Before children go to school, because once they go to school, you turn them over to the school, they're going to indoctrinate them. Before the children go to school, they should have some of this word in them already. They should. You say that like they don't. The way Coty said is like, yeah, because they don't have. But they should have the word. That's how valuable this is. It was commanded. They robbed and stole from us because it was commanded for a father to teach his generations. That's a commandment. That's a commandment. We want to teach our children good morals, good values. Those are good. I'm not saying that's bad. That is good. Having good values, good morals, and things like that, that's good. But we should have been teaching them, and I know we didn't, because a lot of times we don't know who we are. They told me I was nothing. I believed them. They said I wasn't nothing. They said Papa was a Rolling Stone. I believed them. That's how I guess, that's what they told us. In that song, Papa was a Rolling Stone, the son goes to the mother and asks the mother what? Is it true what they said about my dad? Mama, I'm asking you, is it true what they said about my dad? Which means he really didn't know his father. He didn't know his father. Y'all know that was a #1 song for a while. We was what was it, bumping to it, I guess. That goes back in the day. That was a song back in the day. But when you look at the lyrics of it, it's like, man, this is kind of degrading. It's kind of, and we up on the dance floor popping our fingers and dancing and turning up back then, we had 8 tracks. Them big old block 8-track tapes, We thought we was doing it, But when you look at the words and the lyrics, like, man, this is not. It's not a story you want to tell your kids, And they got rich off of it. So we should have been teaching them this book, teaching them this word. And a lot of times many of us couldn't read because they didn't let you read. Y'all know that's a part of the history now. You can't, y'all know it was a crime for us. It was a crime if we read. Yeah. They didn't want you to read. So that's why you look at it, you think, man, you can't really blame us, can you? Can't really blame when you look at where we can't really blame. But that's why we got to turn this thing around. We got to turn this thing around. That's why we should be teaching our children. That's why children are so valuable. Our sons and our daughters, they're so valuable. You shouldn't look at them like, I can't wait, now get them out of here, now I'm just so tired. You can't. Our children, they're so valuable. We should be teaching them because that is a commandment. That's a commandment for fathers. So we teach them the word because the word was made flesh. And it dwelt among us, and we beheld the glory of Abba, because he was full of grace and truth. Full of grace and truth. I know we didn't beheld, but they did. Even Yahukanan said, we handled him. He's the word of life, man. This is what, you see what Yahukanan's writing here, and even in 1st, 2nd, and 3rd Yahukanan, when he's writing, and he says, man, when you go back to Torah and you start reading about Moses and all, he said that became life. I mean, we handled it. We slept, when we say slept, they would just, because all of them, they were just out sleeping under the stars and stuff. And he even said, the foxes have holes, the birds have nests, but I ain't got no place to lay my head. I'm just out here, And and he would go all night and pray. They dined with him. They seen the miracles. They were just, many of them just fascinated with him, didn't want to leave him. And who was it? It was in the 6th chapter of Yahukanan. And he asked his disciples, because he was teaching some stuff that, man, I'm not cannibal. I can't do that. I don't know what he's talking about, eating his flesh, drinking his blood, because I know Abba Yah forbid us to do that. I don't know what he's talking about. So he said, so many people left him, and so he looked to the disciples, and he says, are y'all going to leave too? And Kepha says, where are we going to go? You got the words of life. And like Yahukanan said, we handled the word of life. I mean, we was able to talk to him and witness, his lifestyle, his obedience, his conflict with the religious leaders of the day. Because the Pharisees and Sadducees hated him. They wanted to see him. They wanted to see him. They wanted to kill him. They wanted to destroy him. But they witnessed his miracles. They witnessed his love for the Mishpacha. They witnessed his love for children. When they told him, the disciple says, get these children. He said, no. Forbid not that these little children come unto me, because such is the kingdom, right? Because except a man become as a child, he can't even enter in. And that's that humility. But the word became flesh. So if you say that he's abiding in you, but you don't know no word, what do you really have? Because you really can't separate his ruach from his word. How you going to separate the ruach from his word? When it says in Yahukanan chapter 6, your words are life. So how do you separate the ruach from his word? So then a lot of people get the ruach, but they've never really studied. They never really got into it. It was more of singing and dancing and the choir and Yah Baruch her soul. But Mother Mona Kidd, she was honest. You have to appreciate her honesty. She said she came on Sunday because she loved the choir. Because the choir could sing. And she was just really into it. I love the choir. So a lot of times people, if you don't have the word in you, how can you say you have his ruach? Because you can't separate the ruach from his word. So when it says, we will come and make our abode with you, and you got the Father and the Son, the ruach and the word. You got the ruach and the word. The word was made flesh. It dwelt among us. He said, behold, I come in the volume of the book. It is written of me to do his will. We should know this Torah. What's your favorite books when you read when you was growing up? A lot of us got favorite books that we read and stuff. I was 12 years old, and I had surgery on my knees, and I had somebody bring me a book as a gift in the hospital. The name of the book was I Am Third. And I Am Third was about Gail Sears and Brian Piccolo. And I love that book. I read it more than once. And then I wanted Gail Sears' number 40. But I Am Third, that was one of the books that I read. It was a biography. But anyway, but there's books that we read as children. We grow up that we read, right? Even motivational books and stuff like that. And we try to memorize things that will help us and build us up. But how could you be absent of the Word? I mean, we all should have some, and that's why people are deceived, easily deceived, because they don't have no Word. You ask people, because we were talking about the Ten Commandments. This has been years ago, and I said, okay, stand up, somebody, give me the Ten Commandments. That one day I said, give me the Ten Commandments. And maybe y'all knew it, you just was timid, didn't want to say anything, but a 12-year-old child stood up and ran off the 10 Commandments. I should have known that when I was going to Sunday school at 5 years old. I should have been able to quote the 10 Commandments. We should be teaching these are the 10 Commandments. Y'all know they're trying to get them back into school now. Our 10 Commandments. We should know the 10 Commandments like we know the 9 fruits of the Spirit. Let me hear them. Come on, 9 fruits of the Spirit. Okay, all right. Love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, meekness, faith, temperance. Oh, you want the exact order. Okay, love, joy, peace. Joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, meekness, faith, meekness, temperance. Oh, you just read the initial. Yeah. Because we should all know that. And that's what we're going to get into after we finish on the Hebrew Nugget, after we finish Constantine, all the post-apostolic fathers. But you guys should know the fruits of the Spirit, all 9 of them. We should just run them off. Our children should know it. It's time out bringing up gangsters. No, we don't want to bring up killers. It's bad enough. You know what? I thought you said they're the soldiers. They are our future soldiers and everything, but we don't want them killing one another. Our sons, those that make it, they're going to, and it talks about the 144,000, which are males that has not known a woman. These are young men, never known a woman, so that seed is going to be pure. Abba Yah knows who they are because he said he's got them from all these different tribes. He knows exactly where they are. And that seed is going to be there to build up the nation, mainly because 2/3 of Yasharel is going to perish. They're going to perish because folks don't believe. What did he say in Revelation 21:8? But the fearful and you got a lot of folks don't believe it. Well, you're in the book. I don't believe that. I don't know what y'all got over there. I don't believe that. Well, you're in the book. Because it talks about the unbelievers, because about the only book I open up is the Torah, is the book. Rarely do we get peripheral books every once in a while, but mainly we just open up the book and we read. All right? So, verse 24, he that loveth me not, keepeth not my sayings, which are the commandments of this book, and the word which ye hear is not mine, but Abba's which sent me. So the word, it's Abba's word. That's why, what do you mean? You done with the Old Testament? That's Abba's word. That's his word. How could you be done with something that's his word? What came from the Shamaim, those oracles, that's eternal. That ain't going nowhere. You're going to live and die. and those oracles going to still be there. Everything that he said going to still be there. You done lived your precious life and you died, but his word's still there. How many have gone before us, lived and died, and his word is still there? I can't understand some of these folks that believes in Hebrews 13 and 7, and some of us know what Hebrews 13 and 7 says, right? Yahusha Mashiach. That's right. That's right. So I don't see how people can even read that verse and then just do away with his word, because it doesn't change. All these folks that lived and died, his word ain't changed. It's still there. He says, but the fathers which sent me, so the word is the Father that sent me. These things have I spoken unto you, yet being present with you. But the Ruach, or the Comforter, which is the Ruach HaKodesh, whom Abba will send in my name, what is he going to do? He's going to teach you all things and bring all things to your remembrance, whatsoever I have said unto you, which is the word, which is his word. When you go, even when you go back to the Beatitudes, he's teaching Torah. He's teaching commandments. He's teaching the word. That's what he's teaching. He taught, Yahuchanan says in this book, he says, there probably, I'm kind of paraphrasing, there wouldn't be enough books to write everything that he said and did. Remember when he said that? He said, I would guess that there wouldn't be enough books to write everything that he said and did. But he taught his Father's word, and so he brought out a better understanding, deeper wisdom and knowledge of his word. And in that Ruach, I mean, even when we talk about the fruits of the Spirit, and we get into that, but you'll be able to dig all that up when you go into Torah. You'll be able to see all that in Torah, because that's the fruit of Yahuwah. That's the fruit of the Ruach. I don't, that's a shame. If you a tree, you don't even know what fruit you're bearing. Because who knows you better than your spirit? And it says that in the book. It says, who knows you better than your spirit? I think Shaul said that. I think Shaul said that. Let's go there. Let's go there real quick. So 1 Corinthians chapter 2 and verse 11. For what man knoweth the things of a man, save the spirit of man which is in him? Nobody knows you like you. And if you are a tree and you're bearing fruit, you should know. I think some folks is ashamed of the fruit. They know what they're bearing. They know what they're bearing. Oh, my goodness. And really, for a lot of us, it happened to me, because I looked at myself. There's some stuff I seen I didn't like. I said, man, that's pretty bad, man. It's pretty ugly. You know. But you know your spirit. So how could you know your spirit and your spirit knows you, but you don't know what kind of fruit you're bearing? I think you do know what kind of fruit you're bearing. You just don't know the fruit of the Ruach. And that's what we all should be. That's if you got the Ruach, right? Even so, the things of Elohah knoweth no man, but the Ruach of Yahuwah. Right? Now we have received not the spirit of the world, but the Ruach which is of Elohah, that we might know the things that are freely given to us of Yahuwah. He freely gives it. How does he freely give it to you? So let's go back to Yahuchanan, where we were. How does he freely give it unto you? Because he said we were going to do what? In verse 14:23. Yeah, but how do we know he freely gives us everything of his Ruach? Because what does he say here in 14:23? We're going to come make our abode with you. We're going to dwell with you. So you have free access. You have free access of all things Yahuwah. Because if you read, we didn't read all of it in 1 Corinthians chapter 2, but he says it's the Ruach of Elohim that searches the deep things. And we have that Ruach. Do you know you can really expound and go to greater heights and deeper depths in his word and his Torah? But it's got to change your life. It's got to change your life. But the Comforter, which is the Ruach HaKodesh, whom Abba will send in my name, he shall teach you all things and bring all things to your remembrance whatsoever I said unto you. Peace I leave with you, my peace I give unto you. Not as the world giveth, give I unto you. Let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid. All right? So what I'm trying to impress upon you is having the Ruach HaKodesh. You got to have the word with you. You have access into him. You can actually search Abba Yahuwah, the deep things of Abba Yahuwah. You can ask him for revelation and understanding in the book. If you got the Ruach HaKodesh and you're asking him for understanding, Yahusha gave the example of a father whose son asked him, right, for a fish. And he says, is the father going to give him what? A stone or a serpent? You know, if he's asking for a fish, if my son asking for a grandson, they asking for a fish, something to eat, and so many of us go fishing, right? And you see a snake, you gonna give him a snake? No, my son he's asked for some fish, asked for some food. So we ask Abba, whatever we ask of him, he's able to give it unto us. That's why when Shaul says you have to search the scriptures, he says you have to study to show yourself approved unto Yahuwah, a workman that don't need to be ashamed because you know how to do what? Rightly divide the word of truth. Rightly divide this, right? So, because I'm going to be finishing up here. I'm going to be finishing up here in 2 Corinthians chapter 2 and verse number 1, because you can put this to test. Your Ruach, Yahusha come to make his abode with you, and he's going to teach you all things. And we didn't read that, but in Yahushua 16:13, he says, when he, the Ruach of truth, is come, he's going to do what? Guide you into all truth. So you can understand even some of the dark, deep mysteries of this book. It takes the Ruach, but he'll open it up to you. Now we beseech you, brethren, by the coming of our Adonai Yahushua HaMashiach, and by our, don't say that, because a lot of folks don't, because we talk about being gathered, he going to gather us from the four. You mean Shaul thought we was going to be gathered from the four corners? Oh, yeah. Yeah. In fact, he thought it was going to happen in his day. He really did. He thought he was going to see the Mashiach and the kingdom being established in his day. He talked about the kingdom. Shaul didn't talk about the birth of the Mashiach. You won't find that in any of his letters, his teaching. Does he say anything about the birth of the Mashiach, or you have to believe in the birth to be saved? But there is a religion that you have to actually recite and repeat words. And even, the Catholic Church, but even in Apostolic Pentecostals, you should see some of the things they make you repeat. Repeat after me. And Shaul never talked about the birth of the Messiah. Read his writings. Read all of them. I challenge you. I've read them. Many times I've read them. He doesn't talk about the birth of our Messiah. He doesn't. But a lot of people will trip you up and make you confess something that a lot of them didn't even talk about. But, I guess we got more than them. I don't know, because some of these disciples, they walked with him. And they heard things, and they even wrote and didn't talk about it. Listen what he says. The coming of our Adonai Yahushua Mashiach, and by our gathering together unto him, that ye be not soon shaken in mind, or be troubled, neither by spirit or ruach, nor by word, nor by letter as from us. Now, this is his second letter to the Thessalonians. As that the day of Mashiach is at hand. Because when at one time he thought it was going to be in his day, and then by the time he wrote this second letter, it's not going to happen. There's too many things that has to happen. And where we are now, we're starting to see some of the seals and the trumpets and everything that's spoken of in Revelation. We're starting to see that revealed. So we know that this is the day. It wasn't in the day of Shaul, but it is in our day, because we can see these signs. And Yahusha even said in the 24th chapter of Matthew, he says that generation that witnesses these things, that's the generation where it's going to be fulfilled. Because he said that generation will not pass until all these things are fulfilled. And we're at that generation because we're at the generation where you have the budding of the fig tree. You have Ezekiel 37, where you have the valley of the dry bones. You have the bones rattling. You see the bones starting to come together, right? You start to see sinew and muscles and then flesh. But there was one thing that after they was all assembled, what were they missing? The ruach. They was missing the spirit. So he told the prophet, breathe on them. And then the wind came through, and they had the ruach. That vision of the bones and the dry valley of bones, that vision is being fulfilled as I speak. Where are we at in that vision? We're about at the place where, and I know a lot of people talk about breathing to them the ruach and everything they receive, but that doesn't come until they're all assembled and they're all together. So you're going to have the assembly of Yasharel. You're going to have the assembly of this great nation come back together, and then he's going to breathe that life into them. How's he going to breathe that life into them? Well, when you're gathered unto him, if you make it out, because 2/3 are going to perish, but if you're the third that make it, then you're going to have that. What will you have at that time? Anybody know? You make it into the kingdom. You're the third that makes it in. You're going to have eternal life. You'll have that eternal life. I've made it. I've made it. Because right now, if he doesn't come get us right now, we're gonna die. So that spirit, when he in dry bones in the valley, that spirit that he gives on him, that's that eternal, where you won't have to ever worry about dying again. We won't have to worry about dying again. Right now, and he says in Ephesians, he says what we have now is just the earnest of that. And earnest, when you buy something, they tell you to do what? Put down some earnest money. What is that earnest money? That's just a down payment. It ain't the whole completion. You just get the down. So that's what so when the Ruach HaKodesh, because how many people have had the Ruach HaKodesh and died? Because if time permit, we're going to die. Can't say we didn't have the Ruach, but it's that eternal life. So when that eternal life comes, you never have to worry about dying again. But we are in that day and that time where he's going to gather, the gathering together unto him. He says, that you be not soon shaken in mind or be troubled, neither by ruach, nor by word, nor by letter, as from us, as that the day of the Mashiach is at hand. That was Shaul in his day, but we know the budding of the fig tree, the Valley of Dry Bones, the prophecy, we know that it is happening now. Let no man deceive you by any means that, and some of this was added, because that day shall not come. That's not a part of the text. The original Greek text, which is they call the Sinaiticus, Codus Sinaiticus. I think that's what they call it. That wasn't in there, but they added that for simplification so that you can make it a little easier to understand. But when you get into, and the reason why I say the Sinaitic, the Codex Sinaitica, the reason why I say that is because if you go into study literature and the writings of everything and how do we get this book that we have today? I see you guys, you have your Bibles. Some of it's electronic, but you have the paper copy of the Bible and everything. You know, how did we get to that point, what you have right now? Because a lot of it is a version that was translated in the 17th century by King James and his men, in 1611. King James, that's what a lot of us have. But how did we get there? Where did he get the, because we know the Mashiach did not speak English. We know that. He was not a Roman. He did not speak Latin. He was not Greek. He did not speak Koine Greek, because when you look at what they translated, it was Koine Greek. Why do you say Koine Greek? Because Koine Greek is a more sophisticated Greek language as opposed to just the ordinary Greek. But anyway, that's why I say that, because you have to go back in time to see how we got this book and how this book was compiled. So when you see letters in italics, they added that. It's not in the original text, but they added that for simplification to make it so that when you read, so if you read it, let no man deceive you by any means, for except there come a falling away first. And some people might say, well, that makes sense to me, but they added that, right? Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come. That was not in the original text. So actually it reads, let no man deceive you by any means, for except there come a falling away first. Except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition. Now, we're not going to have time to get all of this on tonight, but remember when we were dealing with Galatians, and he was talking about the seed, and not unto seeds as of many, but unto thy seed, which is the Mashiach, right? So then we had to go back to see what he was talking about, right? We had to go back to Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. We had to go back and read it, because I didn't even get all the scriptures out because we ran out of time, but it was in more scriptures than what I shared with you, where that Paul was referencing. But in those that we did go back to, what did we see? We saw the promises. We saw a of prophecy. We saw a duality, right? We seen dual prophecies in it, right? Because when we were reading it, how could Shaul say that seed was a Mashiach? Because when we went back there and we started reading about it, he was referring to what? Your seed is going to what? Inherit all this land. He's dealing with inheritance. But Shaul says that seed was a Mashiach. So how did Shaul see that? Because when he's, yes. Yeah, he is going to rule down here on earth. He is. But when he talks about thy seed and not many, but one seed, that seed which is the Mashiach, when you go back to look at the prophecy and the promises under Abraham, he's specifically dealing with how all these other nations were going to be blessed. They're not blessed through, Jacob had what, 12 sons? They're not blessed. They're blessed through one. And that one that they're blessed through is the Mashiach. But it doesn't take away the inheritance that he's given to Yasharel. That still stands, right? So you got the inheritance that he promised unto him, and then you have the blessings upon all nations through one, and that's the Mashiach, right? And there's something else I wanted to share with y'all. We'll get there eventually, but it's in the 48th chapter, because when he talks, the 48th chapter of Genesis, because when he talks about other nations, we're going to be blessed. Nations, what's nations in Hebrew? Goy or goyim, right? Goyim or goyal, right? Goyim is nation. We say nations in English. In Hebrew, they say goy or goyim. Anything outside of Yasharel or the 12 tribes of Jacob, anything outside of that, any nation outside of that are called goyim. Goyim. But through that one seed, goyim, we're going to be blessed, which means he's bringing in other nations or goyim into the inheritance of Yasharel, right? Okay. So we see a duality. The point I'm trying to make is you see a duality. Now use that type of understanding as we read through here, okay? Let no man deceive you by any means, for except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition. Okay? Who opposes and exalteth himself above all that is called Yahuwah. Now notice, some people say the son of perdition was who? Because he was the son of perdition, but is that who Shaul's talking about? Yeah, Yehuda Iscariot, Judas Iscariot. He was called the son of perdition. And the reason why he was called the son of perdition is because of what? What did he do? He betrayed because of the betrayal. You betrayed the Mashiach. So you're the son of perdition. Anybody that betrays the Mashiach could fit into that category of the son of perdition. You have to understand that as we keep reading through here, right? He's going to be revealed. We're going to have a revealing, and he's going to be called the son of perdition. It's not Judas Iscariot. Judas Iscariot was called the son of perdition because of his betrayal. So when you see a man that betrays our Messiah, he's going to be a son of perdition. Now listen what it says. Who opposes and exalteth himself above all that is called Yahuwah. Elohim. Listen now, he's exalting himself above. Now what happened to that old dragon that tried to do that, right? In Isaiah 14, right? When he says, I'm going to ascend up on high, I'm going to sit on the congregation of the north, I will be like the Most High. I'll be El Elyon. No, you won't. No, you. And Yahushua said, I seen him cast out like lightning, man. It happened quick. When iniquity was found in him, it happened quick. But here you have somebody, son of perdition. He's going to be revealed as the man of sin, who he opposes. Now, how can you oppose Yahuwah? How can you oppose him? Because nobody has seen him at any time, right? Nobody. You haven't seen him. So how can you oppose Yahuwah? You can oppose his word, because that's what we got. We got his word. So if I stand and oppose his word, I'm opposing Yahuwah. You go against his word, you're opposing him. And he even said his adversaries, those who are his adversaries, because he talks about it in the 6th and 10th chapter of Hebrews. He talks about it's going to devour his adversaries. Anybody that opposes themselves against Yahuwah will be devoured. You can't. Why would he give you eternal life and the new heaven and the new earth and the city that comes down? Why would he give you that and you reject everything he says. Why would he do that? You wouldn't do it. Somebody that is against everything that you represent, and you built something all your life, and you got this inheritance to give, and then you got somebody that opposes everything that you, and you're gonna give him all of it. I don't think so. No, you're looking for dear children. I don't know. I'm looking for the dear ones. I'm looking for the ones that were obedient unto me, that kept my word. He's not, people who oppose him, the way that you oppose Yahuwah is to oppose his word. That's how you oppose him. That's how you go against him. Another way to oppose Yahuwah, anybody got another idea? To oppose him and go against him? What's another way? Go against his word, but what's another way? Oppose and go against his ruach, which is his word, right? The word, you can't separate word and ruach. His people. You oppose his people and you go against his people, you go against him. That's why he said in Psalms, he says, touch not my, and do my, he said prophets with an S. So it wasn't just Yahusha, because some people say, well, he's talking about Yahusha. Oh, no. He said prophets. How many Yahushas is there? One. Well, I mean, I know people had other names, but only one is the begotten son of Yahuwah. So there's only one Yahusha Mashiach, which they call JC. Only one of them. But when you oppose him and you go against his Torah, his word, and you go against his people, if you hate his people, you hate him. If you murder and kill his people, you're murdering and killing him. You're going at him when you do that to his people. How can I verify that? Anybody know how I can verify that? There you go. Coty Walsh is on it. Matthew 25. Matthew 25. You can verify that. Because he said, everybody that does this to my brethren, he says, it's as if you're doing it to me. So when you go against his people, you go against his word, you're opposition to him. You're an adversary of him. That's why we have to always check ourselves. That's why the first fruit of the Spirit is love. I got to have that because I definitely want to love his people now. You know? And even Yahusha says, well, there was a time you could hate your enemies, but I'm telling you, don't hate your enemies. Because if you got the fruit in you, you got love, and you really shouldn't hate anybody. I don't like what certain people do, especially if they do it to me. I don't like it, but I don't have hate for them. I don't hate them. I don't like what they do. I mean, you wouldn't like somebody that would beat you up, put you in prison, and kill your father and mother, and kill your whole family, and cut your feet off, and cut your hands off, and then you're going to love them? That's kind of hard. That's kind of hard to do, you know, but we can't. That's why we have to have that fruit. Okay, who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called Yahuwah, or that is worship, so that he, as Yahuwah, sitteth where? In the temple, showing himself that he is. You better be careful when somebody says they're your God. You better be careful. Better be careful. And that's why a lot of us, we don't know. Most of us, we don't know. Man, some of us is like, man, I ain't never read that before. You know, and we don't read with an understanding. Anybody that opposes the Torah, exalt themselves. So, and we're going through the apostolic, because the word apostolic comes from the Catholic Church. It comes from the Catholic Church. We didn't create that. That's not original with us. That came from the Roman Catholic Church. Apostles. They'll tell you, we were the first apostolic. They'll tell you that. You know? And we say it because they told us to say it. You know, we believe it because they told us to say it. You know. No, they're not. And so that's why we're studying them, because they were philosophers. And they were the first theologians that set the course of that religion. And I can still hear people just mimicking and talking about it, especially when I heard somebody say, if you want to keep the law and everything, you're cursed. And I'm going, oh my goodness. They're opposing Yahuwah. They're going against Yahuwah. That's not my law. I didn't create that. Those are oracles that came from the Shamaim that you're opposing, that you're exalting yourself against. You say you don't need them. And I just want us to know that we might take kindly to family and friends because we love them, but don't put Yahuwah in that box. Because there was a time he wiped out all his people. He told Moses, get out the way. I'll raise up a seed through you. Get out the way. And at one time he took out 20,000 or so, somewhere around there, in the wilderness when they came out of Egypt, simply for what? Murmuring and complaining. To get rid of them. They're not worthy to go into the land. They just murmur and complain against me everything. I can't please them. And that's how it is with some people. You just can't please them. Oh my goodness. We got to watch our relationships because, you know, if you're just impeccable, did I say that right? you know, your demands are so high, can't nobody please you. Be careful. Be careful. Because, Abba Yah, what he did was he got rid of you. If you murmur and complain, or that is worship, so that he as Eloah sitteth in the temple of, this man is in my temple, showing himself that he is Eloah? So we got to see this now, because if you don't see it, you're going to be hoodwinked. You know, and many of us were hoodwinked. You're going to be hoodwinked. Yes. Where he got this from, how he's speaking this as prophecy. Well, I think some of this he probably got out of Matthew 24 when Yahusha was speaking, because the first thing when they asked him, what shall these things be, what shall be the sign of thy coming and the end of the world, right? Let's look at that, Matthew 24, and we'll finish up here because we won't have time to finish. And as verse number 3, and as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, tell us, when shall these things be? That's one question. What shall be the sign of thy coming? That's two. And the end of the age, or the end of the world. And Yahusha answered and said unto them, the first thing he says, take heed that no man deceive you. You don't have to worry about an angel coming down from the Shamaim. You don't have to worry about none of that. It's a man right here on earth that's going to deceive a lot of people. And he goes on to say, for many shall come in my name, saying, I am the Mashiach, and is going to deceive many. He goes on down and says in verse number 11, and many false prophets shall rise and shall deceive many. Right? Then he goes down and he says in verse number 23, So here he's always talking about a man. Yahushua's talking about a man. He's not talking about, so when Shaul starts to get this as far as this person doing this in Thessalonians, because we'll finish reading what it says in Thessalonians, because what's going to be a sign of that person in Thessalonians? It says he's going to come with what? Great signs and wonders. So let's listen to what Mashiach says. Then if any man shall say unto you, lo, here's Mashiach, or there, believe not. The Mashiach is coming. What's going to happen before the Mashiach even comes? Well, he's going to gather us, because Kepha or Shaul even said at the verse 1 of that chapter, he says, unto the gathering of us unto him. The gathering is going to, no, you're not going to see him until he gathers us first. And you got a lot of people that ain't going to want to leave this land. They ain't going to want to go nowhere. Where y'all going? I ain't going. I'm staying here. Well, if you understood the prophecy and what's going to happen on this nation, you're going to be glad to get out. And they even made a movie, Get Out. You better be ready to leave. Some nefarious stuff going on. Y'all better be ready to get up out of here. So there's a lot of stuff out there that it's just, little hints and everything. So listen to what he says. For there shall arise false Christs and false apostles, and shall show great signs and wonders, insomuch. So they're going to come with a lot of power. You're going to see power. You'll see, some people, that's the reason why they go to the Christian religion and the church, because they see, I see all these miracles. And Yahusha even says, in that day, when they say Adonai, Adonai, he says, because he says he's going to do away with them, they're going to say, wait a minute, time out. Haven't we cast out devils in your name? Haven't we done many wonderful works in your name? Haven't we preached in your name? And he's going to say, depart from me. I never knew you. Why? Because you worked iniquity or you were lawless. That's what iniquity is. You were lawless. So everybody that preaches against his law and says his law is a curse, you think those people are going to go into this kingdom? I don't care how saved you say they are. Because, see, it's not up to you. Because I know we will spare family and friends. That's us. We'll spare them, But that doesn't mean Yah's going to do it. Don't put Yah in that box. Because you will spare them, because they're family and friends. Don't put Yah there, because he got rid of a lot of folks for murmuring and complaining. So, that's who we're, great signs and wonders, insomuch that if possible, they shall deceive the very elect. The ones that I've elected and chosen from the foundation of the world, all them Israelites, if it's possible, they will be deceived. They will be deceived. And when you look at what's going on in our age, yeah, I can see it. It's very feasible. Very feasible that a lot of us are deceived. And we walk blindly. But Yahusha got something for that too. Because he says, if the blind lead the blind, all y'all going in the ditch. And in other places he called them blind guides. In Matthew 23, he called them blind guides. So respect the leader and everything, but I'm telling you, you need to search this book for yourself. That's why I always want to read scripture. And that's why, like you said, there's got to be 2 or 3. We got to have line upon line, precept upon precept, because we got to build this doctrine. I'm going to be able to teach this doctrine, right? So if it's possible, they will deceive the very elect. Now, let's go back to Thessalonians, because we got to finish up 2 Thessalonians. And it says, in verse number 5, remember ye not that when I was yet with you, I told you these things. Verse number 6, and now you know what withholdeth, that he might be revealed in his time. It wasn't in Shaul's day, but he says, in time it's coming. There's going to be some false ones coming. You better be able to recognize. For the mystery of iniquity doth already work, only he who now letteth until he be taken out of the way. That iniquity is lawlessness. The mystery of lawlessness. Because you don't have to keep his law, and if you try to keep his commandments, you're cursed. The mystery of lawlessness. Y'all know he's not talking about, he's directing it to his people. He's talking about, because sometimes we think, well, he's talking about the sinner and stuff like that. A lot of times he's not talking about the sinner. He's talking about those who's already in. You guys are already in here. I'm talking to you. That's who I'm talking to. I ain't talking to them outside, because when you see who the letter is written to, he was writing to the Thessalonians that were born again. I'm dealing with y'all in here. I ain't dealing with them out there. So the mystery of iniquity, it's already working. Only he who now letteth until he be taken out of the way. And yes. Right. 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 It was for us because that's who he's trying to redeem and save. The world's pretty much judged. There's judgment's going to come on the world. We're trying to escape that. He's telling those on the inside, this is how you're going to escape it. Because they're out there. There's people out there in the world in these different nations and stuff. They're going to be destroyed. And so he's not dealing with them. He's dealing with those who are in here. When the Mashiach was teaching 24th of Matthew, he wasn't teaching to the world. He was talking to his disciples, his students, those who he had chosen. He even says, my elect, if it's possible, my elect is going to be deceived. That's some strong delusion. But we won't get to it tonight, but it is in here if you keep reading. And we'll get to it another time, because he even talks about this delusion. The delusion is so strong, and it is so strong today. It's so strong that many people feel if they don't believe in the delusion, they can't be saved. That's how strong it is. Because as soon as you speak against it, you speak against that Roman religion. As soon as you do, you're attacked. And family and friends, they won't have nothing to do with you. And all this, hey, I'm just asking you to search it for yourself. Just look for yourself. Because actually, we can't save nobody. We might think, I'm going to save, my ministry saved. Oh, but you ain't saved nobody. Because if you read Ezekiel, and I think it's 21, but he talks about Noah, Daniel, and right, and he said that they could only save what? They could only save themselves. I think that's in 21. If it's not 21, it might be 14. Yeah, maybe it's 14. But he says that the only ones that they could save was themselves. Yeah. The word of Yahuwah came again to me, saying, Son of man, when the land sinneth against me by trespassing grievously. Now, how do you sin against the Most High Yah? How do you trespass against him? You're not following his commandments. Sin is a transgression of the law. So you want to trespass against him, break his law, break his Torah. You trespass against him. Then will I stretch out my hand upon it, and will break the staff of the bread thereof, and will send famine upon it, and will cut off man and beast from it. Though these three men, and they've already lived and died at the time of this prophecy, but he's using them as an example. Though these three men, Noah, Daniel, Job, were in it, they should deliver their own souls by their righteousness, saith the sovereign Yahuwah. And then he goes on and talks about the sons and the daughters and everything, but he goes back and he says, these 3 men, I say unto thee, they shall deliver neither sons nor daughters, they only shall be delivered themselves. So I'm going to save. You ain't saving nobody. You better try to save yourself. That's why they pick it up in Acts and says, save yourself from this untoward generation. Because you ain't, I'm saved. I'm going to save my family. How do you know? How you know Yah's with your family? You better try to be saved. You got to save yourself first. If you can influence somebody else to be saved, but you got to save yourself. All right, questions, comments? My time is up. Any questions or comments out there? Because we're going to get back into Thessalonians 2nd chapter. There's more to read there. There is a strong delusion. It's already out there. It's already out there. And many people will not wake up in time. But those who are awake and those who are being faithful and following the Ruach and in the Ruach and everything, he's not going to leave any of them behind. Not one. He says not one will be left behind. But we got to see that there's a difference between, the Ruach and his word, having that abiding in you, understanding this book, and then following a religion. There is a difference. There's a delusion out there that's very, very strong. All right, questions or comments? If no questions or comments, that is out there, trying to stay true to this, get out of here. Because we wanted to start at 6:30. I wanted to be done. I really want to be done between 7:30 and 8. So I ran a little bit over. It is 8:07 Central Standard Time. But we're trying to get this all done so we can go on home at a good hour. All right. No questions or comments. Then we're going to pick this up. We'll pick it up again. All right. So with that, we're going to say shalom, shalom, and come on back. Come on into Yah's house on Shabbat. On the Shabbat day, come on back into Yah's house, and it's going to be all right. We're going to have a Baruch time. And let's remember our prayers going up, and Mother Perkins' daughter, Tammy Perkins, very tragic. Very tragic. I don't know how many times I go across Centennial Bridge, and somebody went over the median and struck her car head on, and she's only alive through the machines, and that's Mother Perkins' granddaughter, and so they're going to talk with the family. So the day is coming. I don't know if it's this weekend or first of next week. The day's coming where they're going to decide if they want to keep her on life support or just pull the plug. It wasn't even her fault. She was driving on Centennial in her own lane. Somebody went over, and that, when you go over that median on the Centennial Bridge, that'll mess your car up. Yeah, that'll mess your car up. I don't know if it was a truck or what. Yeah, and popped over that median and boom, and yeah, Mother Perkins' granddaughter. Yeah, from Pentecost Church of God. Her granddaughter, Tammy Perkins. She was in her 60s.